Well, there you have it. President Barack Obama outlining his plan for those presidential orders on executive orders on immigration here. He talked about three key aspects of this, JD. Building on the assets for the border, also making it easier and faster for highly skilled immigrants to stay in this country. Third, hitting very heavily on the pro-family aspect, or at least that's the way he's trying to sell that, focusing on families, not felons, children, not criminals, and the like. Also, daring the GOP to do something here, saying if they don't like what he's doing with this, they need to pass a bill.
Well, there are any number of ways to react to it. Stylistically, the obligatory turn of a phrase and alliteration, felons, not families. It would sit a little bit better with the American people, John, if the president cared enough about the Constitution he lectured on, not to lecture Congress, but to work with Congress. The other primary problem that we see with this, and what I keep coming back to, is this simple notion. This is the same president who told you and me and all of us, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. So sadly, words, though they may sound poetic, though at times they may sound aspirational, betray a fundamental problem with this White House. The president says one thing and does another. And the newcomers he invites in now make no mistake about it. The full plan is amnesty. The full plan is a notion of eventually granting these, quote, newcomers citizenship.
Well, the president was careful to say that this is not amnesty. We also like to bring in Rachel Campos Duffy, who's joining us now. She's a national spokesperson for the Libre initiative, a grassroots group promoting activism and for the Hispanic community. Rachel, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks. We promote a free market and free enterprise with the Hispanic community.
And how do you think what you heard from the president tonight is going to impact the Hispanic community?
Well, look, I think that, obviously a majority of Hispanics, including myself, want immigration reform. We think that the system is broken. He talked about this debate is about who we are. And I think the problem here is that there is no debate. There's a debate when it happens in the people's house. There's no debate when this is resolved or done in the White House. So that's something that I'm concerned about as an American and as a Hispanic. I mean, so many of us have left countries that where there's no rule of law, where there are dictators, where there's no representation for the people. And so I think Hispanics want immigration reform, but if you look at the poll that came out from the Wall Street Journal and NBC this weekend, only 42% of Hispanics Americans support what the president is doing through executive action, because what they want is a real solution, a durable solution, that they can have certainty of what's going to happen. Again, this is a temporary fix that serves his political purposes. It can be overturned by a court. It can be overturned by a future president.
Well, we'll see what happens there. And there's some question as to how this is going to be responded to by the GOP. And Rachel, what do you see as the appropriate response from the Republican Party now that the president is going to be going out on the road, going to Las Vegas tomorrow, and some other stops as well in the coming days to try and sell this plan?
Well, I think that they need to not overreact. I mean, they're in a box, if you will. I mean, he has done what he's done. They will be able to take some action once the new Congress is sworn in, and they can decide on that. I think what the president is counting on is sort of a Todd Aiken moment from the Republicans. And you can be sure that if somebody makes a comment that borders on the racial, as opposed to talking about process and the Constitution, that will be the voice that will become sort of the symbol for the media and for this president. So I think it's important that that the conservatives, and specifically the Republicans, not roll back the gains that they made in the midterms. Let's be clear. They gained Republicans by 10. They improved with Hispanics by 10 points in the midterm. They elected two very powerful Hispanic governors who had coattails that brought in Republican legislatures in their corresponding states. So there is some really good improvement that has been done with this very important demographic.
And on that note, Rachel, it's former Congressman J.D. Hayworth. Welcome to our coverage tonight. For purposes of full disclosure, you are the spouse of a serving member of Congress, so you have more
Yes,
than
I
a
am.
casual interest in what transpired a couple of weeks ago. You said it's
Yes.
important for Republicans to avoid a, quote, Todd Aiken moment. Could I bring a
Yeah.
more recent moment to mind? An Eric
Sure.
Cantor moment, where Eric Cantor, the House Republican leader, lost his seat in Richmond, Virginia, precisely because he courted amnesty and he courted a lot of the interests that by some standards would be a demonstration of, quote, not overreacting, but obviously with a key number of his constituents failing to stand up to the president cost him a seat in Congress. Is there a danger that, as you say, Republicans should not lose their heads? Is there a danger that the Republican Party will be caught flat-footed and fail to act in what some have called a constitutional crisis?
First of all, let's be clear that there were multiple reasons. Some say that the flirting with amnesty, as you call it, was the downfall for Eric Cantor. I know people who live in that state that would tell you that it was more about constituent services. Who knows? I'm not going to sit here and dissect why or how Eric Cantor lost. I will say that, again, I am not proposing that the Republican House not defend what is their rightful, they should defend their powers. They have this power to legislate. It is not the power of the president. And I think there are perfectly reasonable constitutional grounds for them to act on, to debate, to talk about, to hold the president accountable. My fear as a Hispanic woman, as a fellow conservative, is that they keep to the facts and that they not let this turn in any way have a racial tone, because I know that it doesn't for Republicans. I know that this is about process. This is about the co-equal branches of government. But I can assure you that this is a president that is very adept at using race to cause division, and he is very smart about that. And so that's my only caution.
There has even been some speculation that the Obama administration may be courting some sort of impeachment proceeding based on this. We've heard from the likes of Charles Krauthammer that the GOP should avoid and do what Rachel is saying, and even some liberal people saying that the president should welcome any impeachment, as it backfired on the Republicans when they tried to do it to Bill Clinton.
And you may recall that I did not mention the word impeachment, which is why I think it's important to outline what constitutionally exists for the Republican Party at this point in time. And Rachel makes a point, which I think is obviously a good one, about the cozy relationship between the dominant media culture and the current resident of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So obviously, the press will try to define things the way the president wants to see them defined. The word that has been bandied about is shutdown. Now, Rachel, you know, being a veteran of campaigns, it all comes down to the explanation. If Republicans, whether in the House or Senate, in clear, measured, unmistakable tones say, look, we want to keep the government open, but we don't want to empower an unconstitutional act, should they in fact quake in fear with the president and the media using that term shutdown?
No, I don't think they should use the term shutdown. They obviously have some other strategic ways of not funding whatever it is that the president just laid out tonight. But I would say that what they should do is work quickly to get a bill together that makes sense. I mean, one of the things that the president said in this speech tonight was that these measures would not apply to future undocumented people. And so it's important that, he didn't really, other than giving a few more dollars to the Border Patrol, it's not clear how he intends to stop future illegal immigration. And so that's something that certainly the Republicans are in very good standing to talk about. And I think in light of what's happening internationally with ISIS and other international threats to our national security, that they are in a perfect right to start to work on something. And I think the most powerful members of the House have made it very clear that they really want to find a conservative solution to this immigration problem that we have.
All right, well, let's real quickly bring in Clara Villar, who's the founder and the CEO of and the editor-in-chief of the Hispanic Post. She's going to join Rachel and JD and myself as we continue this discussion. Clara, are you there?
I am.
Right.
I am. How are you, gentlemen?
It's good to have you with us, and good to have you with us, and with Rachel as well. Clara's live in our New York City studio. Clara, I wanted to get your take on what Rachel was just talking about. The president trying to make it clear in his address tonight that these changes would not impact those who would be hoping to come to the country in the near future or who have just recently arrived here in the country. Do you think this would prevent what some people say this might actually cause as another wave of illegal immigrants coming across the border like we saw this summer?
I think that's an absolute possibility. I think Rachel mentioned some very important points, gentlemen, and I would add some clear issues here. The interesting thing about tonight was the president talked about accountability and common sense. And he started his speech tonight by saying that the Republicans would not introduce any resolutions or any issues that would be helpful towards immigration reform. And I would really beg to differ that there were some amazing amounts of Congress people and political policy people that indeed introduced the guest worker pass as an alternative to dealing with the immigration reform issue. In fact, when any kind of discussion of this was held in the last 2 or 3 years, the Democrats, the president, had a one solution issue. It was comprehensive reform or nothing. So they backed Republicans into a corner. I mean, even Governor Jeb Bush wrote a book advocating guest worker pass as an interim solution to deal with this issue. Everything was struck aside. So I find his comments saying that Republicans never tried to deal with this issue as disingenuous at best and cynical at worst. You know, I think Republicans should really hold the notion that the congressional legislative process is not part of this resolution, and that's good. That's bad, not good. I think we can make a real issue with that.
Clara, we only have a couple of minutes before the break. One thing the president was silent about was any real notion of enforcement. Yes, he made the obligatory first leg of his rhetorical stool tonight, if you will, more resources. He didn't really spell that out. But what's wrong with existing immigration law and actually having enforcement? We often hear that the system is, quote, broken. Have we seen presidents of either party really step forward to enforce existing law?
We have no visa tracking. 60% of the undocumented workers have expired visas. How on earth are we going to add millions of people to a role of an immigration administrative bureaucracy that has no ability to account existing? What happens also, my question is, to all the legal immigrants that are going through the process, the registration, the time and energy, and all of a sudden, what's their time and energy worth if all of a sudden, with the wave of a pen, the president can make a decision? I think we have a lot of material to work with and to stress with the American public that the process here, the president introduced, is broken.
Well, broken's a word we've heard from a number of our guests and the president tonight. We'll have a lot more to talk about. We're going to take a brief break here. Clara de Villar will be back with us, as well as Rachel Campos Duffy, J.D. Hayworth. We're also going to have John Funn come back with us. He wrote an interesting article earlier today about the timing of the president's speech tonight, airing simultaneously during the Latin Grammy Awards. Probably not a coincidence going on in that respect. We did hear the president talk about 3 key aspects of this, making it enforcing the border. He promised to do that. Whether that will happen, we will see. Also making it easier and faster for highly skilled immigrants to stay in this country. Also the president talking about emphasizing families over felons, trying to sell this as a real pro-family initiative. We got that, JD, the last couple of days from Democrats as they got the talking points. We'll have more on this speech tonight and the president's executive orders on immigration.